They whisper that kindness is surrender, that virtue blooms only in the soil of self-denial. They carve commandments into your conscience about service and sacrifice, painting your dreams as selfish stains that must be scrubbed away. But what if that moral framework is a prison designed by those who feast on your compliance? What if the very applause you chase is merely the sound of chains rattling, and the smile you wear is a mask tightened by hands that profit from your obedience? Niccolò Machiavelli, the sharp-eyed observer of power's darkest corners, understood a truth that polite society still fears to acknowledge. A person who cannot bear to be disliked will never truly command their own destiny. To live authentically is to dethrone every unearned opinion, to grind flattery into dust, to meet disappointment in another's eyes and remain unmoved. This indifference is not cruelty, it is the sovereignty of the self. Picture the moment before dawn breaks. The sun hasn't yet painted the sky, but expectation already claws at your consciousness. The notifications demand attention, the messages require soothing responses, the social obligations press against your resolve. You find yourself complying before breakfast, treating courtesy like currency and hoarding tiny coins of approval. Somewhere between the first forced smile and the last diplomatic laugh, your authentic voice grows faint. You end the day spiritually bankrupt, pockets jingling with worthless praise. Machiavelli would have shaken his head at such poverty of spirit. He knew that one who builds their foundation on public opinion builds on shifting mud. If your confidence depends on crowds, you stand on quicksand. The masses are fickle. Today they crown you, tomorrow they crucify you. Ground your worth in external favor, and you're destined to drown with every tide of popular opinion. The remedy lies in becoming bedrock unto yourself, dense and immovable, unapologetically solid. Think back to childhood, when you first discovered the intoxicating power of approval. Perhaps you were 5 or 6, spinning stories for a room full of adults. Someone laughed. That sweet honey of validation. You repeated the trick, louder this time. They applauded. The pattern branded itself onto your nervous system. Perform and be praised. Refuse and be ignored. By adolescence, this reflex became automatic. You learned to predict moods, calibrate opinions, dilute your own passions just to maintain a fragile harmony that was never yours to begin with. Machiavelli warned princes against hiring mercenaries because they fight only for coin, fleeing at the first hint of real cost. When you outsource your self-respect to strangers, you march with mercenary courage. The moment admiration dries up, so does your will to act. Live that way long enough and you'll mistake borrowed shields for your own skin. Criticism feels like a blade because there's nothing substantial underneath to protect you. Society sanctifies martyrdom. Die on every hill but your own, and they'll erect statues from your bones. Yet study history's most memorable figures. None was remembered for polite compliance. Caesar crossed the Rubicon because Rome would not give him what he deserved. Joan of Arc defied armies and judgments alike. Machiavelli himself wrote his masterworks in exile, reviled by the very power structures he dissected, but he wrote anyway, because the truth burned hotter than their disdain. To the timid, self-assertion looks villainous, but it's better to be misunderstood than muzzled. The courage to be disliked is the courage to act while controversy howls around you. It's the strength to advance while arrows of criticism pierce your reputation, to carve a path so unmistakably your own that no imitation can dilute its impact. Imagine your life as a theater production. On stage stands everything you've built and become. In the seats sit every person who has ever whispered advice, offered conditional love, or demanded your compromise. Some clap, some scowl, some sit in judgment. Now dim the lights. If you cannot see their faces, you cannot warp your performance to suit their expectations. Act for the script of your own values, not for the spectators. When the curtain falls, you alone must live with the plot you've created. Be this transformation today. List the names whose approval dictates your emotional weather. Family members, peers, the faceless jury of social media. For each name, ask yourself Machiavelli's question: can they secure my fortress or breach it? If they cannot meaningfully impact your actual well-being, why treat their judgment as law? Exile them from the war council of your mind. Keep only advisors whose loyalty rests on mutual respect, not on your submission. Machiavelli actually prized useful enemies because hostility reveals weaknesses that friends overlook. When a detractor sneers, harvest data, not shame. Does their criticism expose a genuine flaw worth addressing? If so, improve it. Is their attack baseless? Discard it without emotion. Either way, criticism becomes valuable intelligence minted from the very disapproval meant to bankrupt your confidence. People condemn what threatens their your growth unsettles their stagnation. Your honesty burns through their comfortable illusions. Expect backlash as proof of impact. The louder the outcry, the sharper your blade of truth. A wise ruler deliberates in private chambers where no crowd can enter. Likewise, your greatest decisions should be forged in solitude, not in the noisy marketplace of public opinion. Solitude is not loneliness, it's a throne room where only one voice echoes, and that voice is yours. Guard this sacred space fiercely. Cancel obligations that drain your sense of purpose. Silence devices that script your emotional responses. Sit quietly until restlessness fades and the raw pulse of your own will becomes audible. Many people fear this inner chamber because, unguided, they encounter what feels like emptiness. But enter with questions. What am I truly building? Who genuinely benefits from my efforts? Let answers rise unfiltered by external expectations. Rule these solitary councils emerge, strategies and decisions that no mob can overturn. When someone asks for a favor, pause and measure the cost against your deeper purposes. If alignment is absent, decline cleanly. A principled no today fertilizes tomorrow's decisive yes. Guard the first and last hour of each day. Use dawn for self-study, dusk for reflection. This unshared time multiplies your impact exponentially. Announce your priorities openly, then enforce them ruthlessly. Consistency trains others to respect your boundaries. Share your plans only after execution begins. Mystique deters meddling and magnifies achievement. Each pang of people-pleasing guilt becomes fuel to burn in pursuit of goals that serve your vision, not their comfort. There will come a moment, perhaps soon, when someone dear to you demands that you shrink back into old patterns. They'll brand your self-focus as betrayal, your independence as arrogance. Stand firm. Remember Machiavelli's law. It is better to be hated for what preserves you than loved for what destroys you. Offer respect, not surrender. If they withdraw their affection, mourn quickly and march on. A kingdom cannot afford to seat supplicants on the throne. Living for yourself brings clarity where confusion once reigned, resilience where fragility once crumbled, and magnetism where desperation once repelled. The fears that once magnified imagined consequences begin to shrink under honest examination. Social invitations revoked, freedom to decline tedious gatherings, colleagues gossiping, an opportunity to observe weak character. Family members scowling, mirrors showing which bonds were truly conditional, a romantic interest cooling, a filter revealing actual compatibility. Most catastrophes shrink dramatically when subjected to clear-eyed analysis. Cultures preach communal harmony, but genuine harmony is born from honest individual notes, not from muffled instruments playing in fearful unison. Your authentic voice, even when it creates temporary discord, forces healthier recalibration. Families confronted by your boundaries learn to negotiate rather than manipulate. Teams challenged by your dissent refine their strategies. Societies guided by principled radicals evolve beyond stagnation. People-pleasing maintains a fragile, superficial peace, but self-leadership forges robust, lasting order. Critics will hiss the word selfish as though it damns you to moral exile. Examine this accusation carefully. To whom exactly is a self-directed life harmful? only to those who previously benefit from your pliability. Machiavelli applauded rulers who kept their realms stable even at personal cost, but he never preached self-erasure. He understood that a leader drained of will cannot safeguard anyone. Strength must come first, service second. Generosity divorced from genuine choice mutates into bitter resentment. When you give from abundance rather than obligation, your contributions carry real power. When you refuse a misguided request, you empower others to solve their own dilemmas, forging capability instead of dependence. A kingdom populated by strong individuals is infinitely mightier than a flock of dependents constantly bleeding for rescue. Centuries ago, Machiavelli dissected the eternal tension between fortune and virtue. Fortune represents chaos, public opinion, luck, external forces beyond your control. Virtue represents the deliberate exertion of will, the conscious sculpting of fate through courage and discipline. Every time you act primarily to please others, you hand the reins to fortune's chaotic whims. Every time you honor your inner compass, you fortify virtue's methodical strength. Practice sovereignty in small experiments first. Speak an unpopular truth in a safe setting to train your psyche to survive social disapproval. Pursue a project that nobody else understands, letting their confusion thicken your resolve. Spend an entire weekend alone without digital noise, tasting the pure flavor of your own company. Repeat these exercises until your default response flips from automatic appeasement to authentic choice. Visualize your social world as a three-tier pyramid. Indifference to strangers forms the broad base. Most voices belong here, carrying little real weight. Selective influence occupies the middle tier. Mentors, true friends, lovers whose insight genuinely sharpens your capabilities. Supreme command sits at the narrow peak, with only one occupant, you. Anytime you feel stress over reputation, locate the critic within this hierarchy. If they stand beneath the peak, their power over you is limited by conscious design. Living for yourself does not preclude love, it refines love into something far more valuable. When you no longer beg for affection, relationships transform from desperate barter systems into voluntary alliances between equals. You meet others eye to eye, not hand to mouth. If someone departs because your emotional radius has tightened, bless the distance they create. Space clears the throne room, echoes fade, and strategic thinking sharpens. Close all distracting tabs on your mental browser. Mute all competing voices. Shut the door to your inner chamber. Stand before a mirror and practice this declaration. I release the need to be understood. I release the need to be approved. I crown myself sovereign. Observe the stir of rebellion in your gut. That's centuries of conditioning, resisting its own execution. Repeat this ritual until the internal stir transforms into calm self-possession. History seldom remembers those who bent quietly to collective comfort. It remembers the disruptive, the decisive, the courageously disliked. Your life will end relatively soon in cosmic terms. When the final curtain falls, the crowd will disperse to new entertainments, their verdicts forgotten and recycled. The only applause echoing in the void will be your own heart's memory of authentic action. Did you live as a sovereign, or did you spend your days kneeling to unworthy masters? Titles do not honor individuals. Individuals honor titles through their conduct. Likewise, acceptance does not grant dignity. Dignity renders acceptance irrelevant. Live in such a way that on your final breath you owe no apology for betrayed potential, no excuse for dreams deferred to others' comfort, no plea for retroactive permission to have been yourself. Build citadels of capability rather than bridges of compromise. Trade obedience for ownership, popularity for genuine power, comfort for meaningful conquest. Embrace the luxury of being misunderstood. Let principled dissent become the rhythm you march to, not the chain you drag behind you. The courage to be disliked is the only reliable passport to an inner kingdom that no external force can seize, the ungoverned, undefeated territory of your authentic self. When you finally claim this internal sovereignty, something remarkable happens. The world simultaneously grows smaller and infinitely wider. Smaller because the crowd's noise no longer fills your horizon. You notice only what genuinely concerns your purpose. Wider because possibilities once blurred by other people's expectations now stand clear in stark sunlight, begging to be shaped by your unique vision. You see 1,000 roads branching from your current position, none of them marked by consensus, none paved by polite expectation. The map of your future is blank, and your authentic signature will become its first definitive line. Yet the mind, long conditioned to follow visible tracks, initially balks at this newfound freedom. It mistrusts what lacks signposts, yearns to ask for directions, even after you've burned the villages that once offered them. This is the withdrawal phase of approval addiction, a trembling urge to reinstall the psychological leash. When it arrives, greet it like an old creditor you've finally outgrown. Offer no explanation, pay no emotional tribute, simply turn away and resume your chosen path. Nothing ruins a personal revolution faster than nostalgia for the very chains you fought to break. The courage to be disliked is ultimately the courage to be completely, unapologetically yourself. It's the recognition that your authentic voice matters more than their comfortable silence, that your genuine dreams deserve attention more than their shallow expectations. In a world that profits from your compliance, your sovereignty becomes the most radical act of all, and the foundation for everything worthwhile you'll ever build.